Good morning, world, and all who inhabit it. Welcome back to the show, the wrestling show, the most interactive wrestling show on the interweb. That's my intro. I forgot it. It'd be like that. Happy Saturday morning to everyone. I already see Liam in the chat. I see others joining as well. We have a whole bunch of stuff to talk about today. We're going to be talking about John Cena's return to WWE, potential WrestleMania plans for John Cena. We're going to see him on SmackDown. We know that much. I'll talk about all that. Also, we have insight where we found out this week that Sasha Banks, now known as Mercedes Vernado, potentially could be known as Mercedes Monet by the end of all of this. We'll get into all of that. She could be on her way to New Japan Pro Wrestling, and I'll tell you why that opens the door for her to potentially also go over to All Elite Wrestling instead of returning to WWE like many people have theorized. Liam says, a UK time real take stream. Pigs are flying today, Liam. But I hope you're doing well. Hope everyone in the chat is doing well. Guys, if you're just joining us, be sure to hit that like button if you haven't already done so. Helps out the algorithm, helps the channel grow, and it helps more people see this stream. If you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, be sure to leave a 5-star review. Let's just get right into the whole John Cena thing because I thought that this was a pretty cool topic. And obviously, I think everyone's just interested in seeing what the hell is next for John Cena. So John Cena was advertised this week on SmackDown to be at next week's SmackDown, or sorry, to be at SmackDown in 2 weeks, I should say, which is the final SmackDown of the year. John Cena is going to be at the final SmackDown of the year. We have not seen him since he had that 20th anniversary celebration on Monday Night Raw a few months ago. A lot of people thought that might lead to a SummerSlam match with John Cena and maybe Theory, John Cena, and someone else. No, none of that materialized. The last time we've seen John Cena wrestle in the ring was in 2021. That was that SummerSlam match he had against Roman Reigns for the Universal Championship. Since then, he's made that one appearance on the 20th anniversary show, and he has not wrestled for the entirety of 2022. Barring something miraculous happening, he's not going to wrestle for the entirety of 2022. And the farther away we get from it, like, the more we have to really think. And this is something I always come back to. Guys, John Cena is in great shape. John Cena is a literal Superman, right? At the same time, this dude is 45 years old, going on 46. He's not going to be young forever. And we've obviously, I think it's beyond the pale of me saying, or I should say, I shouldn't have to be the one to say this, but we have seen most of John Cena's career. Everything we're gonna see now is pretty much extra. The dude is a Hollywood superstar at this point. He's got a very successful HBO Max show. He has movie deals up the wazoo. He's Don Toretto's brother in Fast and Furious. John Cena doesn't need to come back and do professional wrestling. He only needs to come back and do it when he wants to. And when you've been doing something, or when you do something for 25 years plus, you know, it becomes, I think it becomes one of those things of, it would be nice, if I'm John Cena. It would be nice if I wrestled, like, every few months, but don't need to do it. That's what makes this news of John Cena's potential return a big deal. Now, Dave Meltzer, again, a lot of people roll their eyes at me even mentioning that name, but he is a credible source when it comes to wrestling news. Dave Meltzer of the Wrestling Observer newsletter left John Cena's status for WrestleMania 39 up in the air, though as the 45-year-old is currently scheduled to be in Australia from February through March for filming a movie. It does not look like John Cena is going to be booked for a match. Because at that time, if he's going to be busy for most of February through March, then it doesn't look like he's going to have time for a build. It doesn't look like he's going to have time to be that big attraction. All that being said, the main event of WrestleMania last year, WrestleMania Night 1, I should say, last year, was built on the rumor, was built on the report, until he finally had that, like, Instagram video saying that he would, of Austin showing up. That's what moved tickets. That's what got butts in the seats. And Steve Austin, mind you, did not show up for a single episode of Raw, SmackDown, NXT, any of that leading up to WrestleMania 38. Yet, he got the biggest ovation. He was the needle mover for that show. And on top of it all, he main evented. So, if the plan is to just say, hey, John Cena is going to be wrestling Theory, or John Cena is going to be wrestling Kevin Owens, or whatever, if that's the plan, it's going to work in the sense that people are going to show up and show out to watch John Cena. If you get him for one night, you get him in for one night, and that is one of the nights of WrestleMania, none of it else matters. None of it else matters. You got Liam in the chat saying, ooh, actually, all right, we should be back on. Hopefully we are. Sorry, I was getting some weirdness from the YouTube thing. We're back anyway. But if you get John Cena for one night, you get him for one night. One thing you got to make sure is that it's at WrestleMania. None of it else matters. You can have John Cena with no build go out there and just wrestle. And it'll work, guys. It will work. Liam in the chat says, Theory versus Cena at Rumble? You would have to, I mean, that SmackDown appearance at the end of the year would have to be the build-up. Because, I mean, it just would have to be. The other thing that complicates this, right, is I don't know what John Cena's current deal is as far as what he's allowed to do, like who he's allowed to do these things with. But generally, when you have time scheduled on your calendar to shoot a movie, generally, I don't think the movie studio wants you in the ring wrestling and have that potential to get hurt. I think that does complicate things quite a bit when we're talking about, you know, when we're talking about John Cena and him potentially showing up at Mania, or him potentially showing up before his movie shot. Liam in the chat asks, also, what happened to the World Cup watch-alongs? Well, here's once upon a time, Liam, once upon a time, YouTube gave me a strike for, and I quote, deceptive practices. Because a watch-along stream that is clearly labeled as such in the description, in the title, clearly labeled as such, apparently is deceptive. I got a copyright strike, or I got a community strike. I'm not allowed to stream the World Cup anymore, or anything like that. They're very sensitive in general about even watch-alongs for the World Cup. So those aren't coming back. I am doing the one-off videos, kind of talking about news coming out of the World Cup. I did one actually just late last night, talking about the passing of U.S. Soccer journalist Grant Wall, who died last night during the Netherlands-Argentina game. By the way, I mean, hearts go out to Grant Wall and his family, who are obviously going through a very difficult time. But as far as the streams go, I don't think those are going to happen anymore, unfortunately. I enjoy doing those, but I cannot risk the channel being struck down. That is one thing we can't do. We can't risk the channel being struck down, but it is what it is. Anyway, back to John Cena real quick. Last note I'll make here. The the big the biggest thing you can do at WrestleMania, right, is Rock versus Roman. Reports indicate that if that is not penciled in by January, end of January, it's not going to happen. The next best thing you can do is just have John Cena at the event. And you don't and again, it's not one of those things where you need to build it up. You don't need to build up John Cena wrestling at WrestleMania. You really don't. He can just show up and he's there and he's the guy. Like that is what he's done his entire career. Why should it be any different now? Because at the end of the day, you, me, and everyone else out there are going to watch. We're going to watch because we're going to be able to see one of the best to ever do it, potentially for the last time in a big time WrestleMania match. And I don't think it's going to be Roman versus Cena. They've already done that twice at this point. It's not going to be Cena versus Edge. That has been thrown around there. I think it's going to be either Theory or, I mean, here's the thing. I want to say, I mean, Theory is like the guy that WWE's kind of handpicked for this and all that stuff, and I get it. I totally get it. At the same time, though, I'm not sure if Austin Theory is going to be able or would be able to handle that situation the same way Kevin Owens did last year, right? Where the guy who you would expect to kind of carry the promos and carry the feud going into the match isn't there. Like Kevin Owens, I mean Stone Cold Steve Austin, right? You would expect if they're gonna have a match with him, he's gonna be the guy going, "Oh hell yeah, give me a hell yeah, I'm gonna stop." What did he say? Oh, or sorry, I always go back to the Santino Morella thing. Like his impersonation of Stone Cold Steve Austin is the funniest thing he's ever done. Like my man would go out there and be like, "My name is Cold Stone Steve Austin. Tonight, I'm going to open up a can of the ass whip, stomp a mud pie, and eat some low-fat yogurt." Like, amazing. Absolutely amazing. Go watch that if you haven't already. Um, Liam in the chat says, Theory took a hell of a stunner at Mania. That is true. He took a great stunner at WrestleMania. Like, he sold it better than I think, honestly, like, for me, the best stunners I've ever seen were probably like, I mean, The Rock has an iconic one where he just like flounders around like a fish, right? For me, the best stunner that I saw was the one that Scott Hall took at WrestleMania X8 or 18, whatever you want to call it, right? That was the best stunner I've ever seen because it was just so like crisp and he sold it perfectly. It was like boom, and he goes up, immediately takes that flat bat bump like in one go. He looked like he was stunned. But Austin Theory took a great one too. Pat McAfee's selling though of his stunner was amazing. Like when he just had he had his beverage in hand and he's just going like he's stunned. It was an amazing shot. I was sports entertained that night. Now, guys, by the way, if you're just joining us, be sure to do me a big favor and hit that like button if you haven't already done so. Helps out the algorithm, helps the channel grow. Subscribe to for all your wrestling needs. This is a plug, by the way, that I'm just gonna put in there, if I may, for tonight. So, guys, tonight, if I can find this damn thing, I don't know if I can. Boom, boom, boom. There we go. So, guys, just a reminder that tonight, live reactions to NXT Deadline. Tonight, Braun Breaker defends his NXT Championship against Apollo Crews. We have the men's and women's I can't say that word. Iron Survivor Challenge. That's gonna be an interesting time. I don't know how I feel about that match. The rules seem very convoluted. It reminds me of King of the Mountain a little too much, and I don't know whether or not that's a good or a bad thing, but I'll be reacting to it tonight, 8 PM Eastern. Liam, that's about what? Like, I'm gonna do some math here. Like 1 AM your time ish. So sorry about that. At least it's a Saturday, my man. Um, Liam in the chat also says, That's annoying. Hundreds of people are doing watch-alongs right now, so it's sad that YouTube are letting some people stream and some not. Completely understand where you're coming from, though, no worries. Yeah, I mean, it's unfortunate. But I appreciate your understanding of that, and we'll still do other content too. Rest of the wrestling streams, though, they seem to be a little more lax about, at least right now. But guys, tonight, 7:30 p.m. Eastern, I will be going live to react to all of the greatness that we're about to see from NXT Deadline. So subscribe if you haven't already. Hit that like button on this. We are not done. Be sure to leave your questions in the chat. Remember, this show is user driven or user driven. User driven, is that the term? Watcher driven, viewer driven. That's what I want to say. This show is viewer driven. So if you're in the chat, definitely leave your questions. We will get to them. But also hit that like button and subscribe as well. Before we move on to our next topic, I obviously think that I just want to put a bow on this John Cena thing. It is weird to me how we've evolved on John Cena. It is weird. I mean, it's almost like if you were to ask me 10 years ago what I thought about John Cena and his run in WWE and his legacy, it is virtually night and day as to what I would say now. Now, obviously, I've become, I think, a more informed viewer of professional wrestling, but generally, I feel like the vibe would be the same had I, like knowing what I know now, been watching wrestling back then. Because John Cena was boring. Like there was a spell where he was doing great stuff. He rarely ever had a bad match, but there was like this time from like 2009 to like 2013 where John Cena was doing some of the most just annoying and boring. It was somehow a weird combination of annoying and boring, and it turned a lot of fans off. That's when you saw a lot of the Cena sucks chants and a lot of the hatred and and that negative sentiment shift against Cena. I mean, it had shifted obviously like a little bit before then because he had become, white meat babyface John Cena, but when he became Super Cena and like there was a time where it's like he became Super Cena where it was like ridiculous the situations that this man would get his way out of. Like the dude lost like he lost his job, forced to join the Nexus, exiled from WWE, comes back a week later. Like it was annoying. He Cena wins, lol, all of that annoying. Main eventing with the Miz, annoying and boring. And yet it was like 2015 through 20 like 17, his final full-time run in WWE was some of the best work he's ever done. And it's crazy how that shifted. And I think it was when they started leaning into the whole Cena sucks thing. It's when Cena himself started leaning in to the 5 moves of doom thing. That's when you really realized, how like creative he could be. And on top of that, when he was gone for 6, 8 months on end, that's when you realize how much WWE TV really needed John Cena, especially during that time. Because we would come back and he would have those promo battles with Roman Reigns, mop the floor with him. He would have those promos with AJ Styles, absolute beast. Have those promos with The Miz. Like, I remember to this day, I think one of the most like iconic John Cena promos to me, or one of the best ones in his recent run, was when he cut leading up to Mania 2017. So that was Mania 33. It was when he was gonna wrestle with Nikki Bella against Miz and Maurice. And John Cena, SmackDown, I think it was the go home show or a week or two out. Like they're all in the ring, and he's just done. He's just done with The Miz and all and, the Total Bella bullshit and all that stuff. He's done with it. And he just cuts this, like, impassioned promo. Like, it's 5 minutes long, but it's just like a masterpiece, and that's when you really realize, "Oh my god, he might be one of the best to ever do it as far as cutting promos." Like, the charisma, I don't think with John Cena was ever in question, right? He always had some sort of charisma. It was always like the storyline or the fact that he would just win in these ridiculous situations that annoyed you. But then he comes back and it was almost like that time away revitalized him, but he also kind of understood his role and he didn't need to be the guy. But he came in and he felt like a superstar. It's one of those weird things. But I mean, like that promo just stands out to me as one of like his like the like him just going up to Miz and Maurice going like, "You're not the it couple, you're the it couple." Like, amazing, and it was almost effortless, like, I don't know, that was me marking out about John Cena, but you guys have a favorite wrestler you want me to mark out about, or you want me to complain about, let me know in the chat. Hit that like button if you haven't already done so, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you get notified whenever a new video is released. Alright, moving on, we got news on Sasha Banks. It's boss time, as Michael Cole would say. So we have a bit of an update on Sasha Banks. I explained this and I covered this story in a previous video on the channel. So go back in the archives, youtube.com/real take wrestling. You can go back in the archives and check out the full details on this. But gist of the report was, according to PW Insider, Sasha Banks has been slated to appear at Wrestle Kingdom 17, January 4th, New Japan Pro Wrestling. Leading up to it, we've known that Sasha Banks apparently had not been taking any wrestling related bookings until January. That was the line from her representatives. That was the line that we had heard from these reports that she was not taking wrestling bookings until January. It has never been confirmed whether or not she was released. There was that report that came out by Raj Giri back in, I believe, June, where he said that Sasha Banks had effectively been released from the company. And if that's true, that would kind of put the timeline of a 6-month release in January. Like if she had sorry, a 6-month non-compete, I should say, in January. And time's coming up. If this report is true and Mercedes Vernado, or as we've seen the trademarks go out, Mercedes Monet, whatever she's going to be called, she goes away from WWE and she signs with whether it's New Japan Pro Wrestling and she becomes one of the biggest stars in Japanese history, or she goes over and AEW and New Japan have that relationship, and she goes over and joins AEW because remember January 11th, AEW has a big show. AEW is running the Kia Forum in Los Angeles, and as of right now, there's a tag team match scheduled for that event. It's Jamie Hayter and Dr. Britt Baker, DMD, taking on Saraya and a mystery partner. Now, I'm not one to speculate, but I'm gonna do a little bit of speculation. The timing would just fit, and if she's gonna appear at Wrestle Kingdom, you bet your sweet butt she's gonna be the mystery partner at the Kia Forum. That's just me saying this. We obviously have a month before all of this plays out, but me looking at the landscape right now, that's where that's and if that's all happening, if she's actually gone from WWE, that looks like where things are going. And the thought of her wrestling outside of AEW, I know for a lot of people, or outside of WWE, I know a lot of people want to say like, well, she was doing a lot of great stuff in WWE. Think of that match she had with Bianca Belair. Think of all her great runs with Charlotte. Think about that great last woman standing match she had on Raw, and all those moments that she's had, and how she's felt like a star. She's been a star. She's a legit boss. All of that is true. But to all of that, I say, isn't there a part of you that wants to see her wrestle some new, fresh matchups against people you didn't think that she would wrestle against? Like, isn't there a part of you guys that's a fan that wants to see Sasha Banks versus Dr. Britt Baker, that wants to see Sasha Banks versus Jamie Hayter, that wants to see Sasha Banks versus Tony Storm, Sasha Banks versus Thunder Rosa, Sasha Banks versus Kyrie, Sasha Banks versus Chris Statlander, Sasha Banks versus the GOAT herself, Hikaru Shida. Isn't there a part of you that wants to see that? Because as a wrestling fan, I want to see all of those. And if there's a chance we get to see those and feuds coming out of those and just those matches in general, and most always, if it's something that Sasha wants to do, that Mercedes wants to do, let's do it. I'm excited about it. And if she ends up going back to WWE, I'm excited about that too. Because we get to then there's potential, hopefully, with Triple H in charge. We get to see fresher matchups there too. You get to see Sasha versus a Roxanne Perez. Sasha versus a Cora Jade. Sasha versus a new and improved Mandy Rose. No matter what, the fans win. And that is why I don't understand the constant bickering amongst wrestling fans. There's a lot of bickering amongst wrestling fans. Like they want to say, "Oh, well, she should only do this, or she should only go back to WWE. She should only do AEW. She should just say F American wrestling and go over to Japan and just stay there." I understand wanting to see your favorite wrestlers in your favorite company. I totally get that, right? I 100% understand that. But also, we should want to watch good wrestling. And Sasha Banks might be in the ring, in-ring wise, she might be the best female wrestler to ever do it. In-ring wise, she might be a top 5, like, all time in general to ever do it. And that is not a slight against her. That is a full compliment because y'all know how I feel about Bryan Danielson. Y'all know how I feel about Bryan Danielson. He's the GOAT in everything. But that being said, Sasha Banks creeping up on him. Now, as far as what I think is realistic, I do think it's in play. Like, I do think, like, her going to AEW, especially if she's going to be at New Japan, according to these reports, it's in play, and it should excite you. It should excite you. Just like her going back to WWE should excite you. You know why? Because fact of the matter is, since May, Sasha Banks has not wrestled a match. And whether she goes back to WWE, goes to New Japan, goes to AEW, wherever she goes, at the end of the day, we get to see Sasha Banks wrestle. And that is way better than not having a wrestle, in my humble opinion. But y'all let me know what you guys think in the chat. We're wrapping up this show, by the way. Heading into the home stretch here. Just a nice little 30-minute Saturday morning show. We're gonna try to do these more often. But guys, again, if you haven't already done so, go over to youtube.com/Real Take Wrestling to get the full video version of this if you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Also, be sure to leave a 5-star review on those platforms. If you're watching live or on a replay, first of all, hello. Secondly, be sure to hit that like button if you haven't already done so. It really helps out the algorithm with YouTube changing all of that and changing the way that they format and lay out the live streams versus the videos. Leaving a like really helps out the channel and helps more people see the content that we're putting out. So definitely do that and subscribe. As always, subscribe. Last bit of a plug here, just so everyone knows. Live reactions to WWE NXT Deadline, the Iron Survivor Challenge. um, is gonna are gonna be we're gonna be going live for that, reacting to it around 7:30 p.m. Eastern time, 4:30 p.m. Pacific, like 12:30 a.m. I believe, uh, GMT maybe. I hope I did the math right on that. 7:30 Eastern. Do the math yourself. We'll be going live. I'll be reacting. I will be giving out and complaining about how much I probably will hate the Iron Survivor challenge, but we'll see, guys. Anyway, until next time, though, I really want to thank Liam and everyone else for joining in, showing out. Be happy, be healthy, enjoy the weekend, and as always, keep it real.